Hey, my name is Susan, and I didn't have the best childhood. I guess it was my mom's fault. She always criticized me and said, "Why aren't you smarter? Why aren't you prettier? No guy will ever date a girl like you." You can imagine how I grew up quite insecure. I avoided making friends because I thought no one liked me anyway. But that changed in 11th grade. I became friends with Lena, and she had a reputation of being a bad girl. We started going to parties together, and I felt like I finally belonged. There, I met this one guy called Milo. We had so much fun together that I decided to move out of my mom's place and in with him. He was 4 years older than me, but he was just as much of a mess as I was. After I barely graduated from high school, we partied every single night. Sounds fun, right? But it wasn't really. I felt more and more like a loser. So I decided to enroll in college. It was quite expensive, though, and I had to go on credit. But I hoped that being in debt would motivate me to finally start studying and get control of my life. But that wasn't the case. I still didn't study and got terrible grades on my exams. One day my professor asked me why I was struggling with his material, and I told him I had a problem sitting down and concentrating. He said I shouldn't worry and that I could study right next to him. It sounded like a wonderful idea, so I agreed, and it worked for the first 2 weeks. But then I stopped showing up. My professor was very disappointed and told me if you don't start studying, you won't pass your exam. But I knew it was already too late and didn't even try. I mean, I still took the exam, but it was a disaster. I only knew maybe 5% of the answers. After the exam, I went back to my professor. I said, "I completely messed it up. I'm so sorry. I really wanted to study, but I just didn't know how." He said, "Well, it's too late now anyway." Ugh, I wanted to cry. But then I noticed that all the other students had already left. In a last attempt to persuade my professor to give me another chance, I sat with my big butt on his lap. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm so sorry, but I can't take it anymore. I have so much stress living at home, and I just need someone to give me a hug." I pressed myself against him, and I think he really felt bad for me, because after I told him a bit more about my problems, he offered to let me move in with him. I said, "That would be so nice of you," and pressed myself against him again. It was a very long hug, but it felt so good. And at the end, I whispered in his ear, "I hope we become very close friends." When I arrived at his home in the evening, he told me I could sleep on his couch, and then he said goodnight. But I responded, "Wait," and came close to him. Then I stood on my tiptoes and gave him a long kiss on his mouth. He liked it and put his hands upon my waist. That one kiss changed everything. Within a few days, we were in a passionate relationship. He had also tried to make me study for college, but it was hopeless. I always ended up kissing and making out with him. He was my professor in 3 of my 9 classes, so I saw him at school a lot. One evening, I asked him if he could give me a better grade, but he said that would be wrong and I couldn't do it. But I said, "What we're doing here is wrong too. I mean, professor-student relationships aren't allowed. It says so in the school policies." He said, "What are you saying?" I didn't say anything more, but I knew he understood the subtle threat. I think he was a bit angry, but it didn't stop him from caring about me. We lived together for over 2 years, and I got what I wanted from him the whole time. He not only gave me good grades when I told him to, but he also paid for my food and all my other expenses. He kept it up until I graduated. With the good grades he'd given me and a recommendation letter he wrote for me, I had everything I needed to go out on my own. So it was really easy to find a job. In fact, I found a position making $60,000 US. I was so excited to start my new life. But karma has a way of catching up to you. After 2 months, the people at my company realized I didn't know the first thing about accounting. They fired me immediately. By the time I left the building, I felt depressed and worthless again. I'd already moved out of my professor's home, so I needed to find another job quickly. That's why I ended up working as a cashier at Walmart. It's an easy job, but the salary's so low, I can barely afford to pay the rent on my shared apartment. Even worse, I owe $30,000 in student loans, and I have no idea how I'm going to pay them off. Sometimes I wish I had treated my professor better. Maybe if I had, we'd have gotten into a serious relationship and had a nice life together.